Another topic I wanted to go over again was Declan Rice. I'm seeing a lot of links to Rice, and even like trusted journalists talking about how we're interested in him and stuff like that. And for me to think about where he would play in this system and stuff like that. So let me even think. There's two roles he can play here. He can play the eight role and he can play the six. I know there's obviously advantages and disadvantages to him playing in either of those positions. For example, in the six role, he can definitely play that role. I think Partey is definitely better because Partey is way better in terms of being able to progress the ball. But Declan Rice, he might be better defensively than Partey, but not as good as him on the ball. But the gap in terms of defensively is not enough for me to drop Partey for Rice. The only thing advantage we get with Partey with Rice is that Rice is younger. He's always available. Doesn't is like he's rarely injured. His fitness record seems to be good, and yeah, he's available. So obviously that would be someone that'll be long term because Partey is 30 and Rice is 24. So again, if he's coming to play the defensive mid position, that's a long term signing. But in terms of the present and where he can play right now, you could probably look at Granit Xhaka's role. You could probably look at Granit Xhaka's role and say to yourself like, what would what would Rice bring to that position? So what can Rice bring there? You look at Rice and how he plays. For example, he's got powerful runs. The way he carries the ball from back to front, he can progress the ball with passing. He can progress the ball with dribbling with his long bursting runs. He's able to switch the play to left and right side. He can play progressive passes in between lines as well, and he's very good defensively. So what's the role of Xhaka in that kind of system? As I've mentioned, that role can change as well because he could just play Zinchenko's role in the team rather than playing Xhaka's role. So let's say, for example, he's playing the role Xhaka is currently playing right now, where Xhaka is the one attacking the box. I don't think I don't think that Rice is the most technical player in terms of receiving in the final third, back to goal, carrying the ball, and all that kind of stuff. I don't think he's the best in that sense. He's got some attributes, some box-to-box attributes, and also he's very expensive, but you're paying for the intangibles in terms of his leadership qualities, his character, and he seems like a very intelligent player. But in terms of his box-to-box trait, he can carry the ball. He can run with the ball. He can attack space. He's very good at attacking space. He knows how to draw space as well. You see his goal for Southampton where he knew that the space was on the side, but he used the player on his left-hand side to play a quick 1-2. Play the 1-2, leaning towards the left-hand side, but then quickly ran into the right-hand side to receive the space. And he's willing to shoot as well. So he is a threat when he runs with the ball into the final third. Kind of like what Kante used to do where he could carry the ball into the final third and make something happen there. But just not, but there's a difference between having a guy like that and having the likes of Smith Rowe and Fabio Vieira, the guys who can receive back to goal, receive in the final third, touch and turn, carry the ball. You know, like just those kind of more technical players in the final third. But again, if you are going to rely, if you do know, understand that you've got the likes of Smith Rowe and you've got the likes of Fabio Vieira and you want to rely on them long term as well, then you don't really need that kind of, you don't really need to be looking for that kind of profile on the transfer market. Of course, if you can find that, you go for it, but then you don't really need to be looking for that profile because you already have that in the squad already. You have Odegaard, you got Fabio Vieira, and you got Smith Rowe. So maybe we're interested in Rice because yeah, he's not that kind of profile, but we already have that profile on the squad already, and he can cover defensive mid, he can cover centre back, and he can also play Xhaka's role in the system. Then again, like I mentioned in the previous video about how the roles can change, Xhaka's role doesn't always have to be that role where he's just constantly attacking the final third, because if Zinchenko's not playing and it's Kieran Tierney and Kieran Tierney is overlapping on the left, that would mean that Martinelli would have to drift on the inside, and then that would mean that Rice has to be the one who's staying deeper, trying to progress the ball like what Zinchenko does. So then think about our shape in that sense, where we have Rice and Partey in defensive mid, like in midfield, progressing the ball, and then you got the three centre backs there, and Gabriel Saliba and Ben White. You realise how strong that is defensively. Like if we lose the ball in the final third, like you can rely on those guys to defend, like just those five guys by themselves, like Partey, Rice, Gabriel Saliba, Ben White. That's a very strong team defensively that can do with transitions. Like there's no weaknesses there. There's no player who's not capable of dealing with 1v1 isolation. They can all defend. They can all progress the ball. They can all build the ball out the back. So again, That's why I've said that long term, when you look for a left back, you do want to find a left back who is capable of doing both what Zinchenko does and what Tierney does in terms of overlapping and also drifting in. Because yes, sometimes you would want Xhaka to play the Xhaka role where you'd want Declan Rice to play the Xhaka role where he's attacking the box. But at times, you would want him to play the Zinchenko role where he's deeper to deal with transitions. So where we have a solid base. You see what I mean? Where you've got solid base defensively, you can deal with transition. And because you look at Man City, for example, I think Arteta's probably learned a lot from some of Pep's mistakes in the past. Because obviously Pep will be playing with David Silva and De Bruyne in midfield, Gundogan and stuff like that, Bernardo Silva, and they have suffered with some like in terms of they've been dominating the ball, but then they end up playing like a Monaco or Tottenham or who else have they played? They played various teams that hit them on the counter attack in transition, and they ended up losing simply because they couldn't defend the transition because they didn't have enough players behind the ball. And you're looking at Pep this season and what he's doing, where he's literally got four centre backs. You know, a centre back, Ake playing left back, and he's pretty much a centre back. You got two centre backs, and you got Walker, who's these days is pretty much a centre back because he barely overlaps like that. So I think like even Pep is learning, and Arteta's learned from Pep's mistakes going into the Champions League. I think maybe that's why we're actually very keen on Rice, because he can play that role, especially against the lesser teams. Because against the lesser teams, you've got a guy like Rice who can carry the ball, drive into the final third, receive there, and also counter press because he's very good defensively. So he's pressing high up the pitch, which increases your chance of actually winning the ball back as well in the final third, increases your counter pressing ability, which therefore increases the amount of possession you have, because if you can win the ball back, you get the ball back again and you have the possession. So again, Rice improves us defensively and also improves our counter pressing as well. And then when you look at the Champions League, when you're playing against the very best teams in the world, you want to be able to deal with transitions. And if Rice is going to play that kind of role where he's going to be sitting in Zinchenko's role rather than Xhaka's role, then that's a very, very solid base defensively. You know what I mean? Of Rice, Partey, Gabriel Saliba, Ben White. So again, he improves. I think he improves. He definitely improves us all over the park. Of course, you have to look at the options that's there. If Kamavinga, for example, was available, like come on, that's a no-brainer and things like that. But he's not available. For me, it's all about looking at who's available in the market. But I think Rice is definitely a very interesting option for that sake. I'd see the point of people who feel like, no, go for someone who's more technical. But again, if you're going to rely on, if we trust Fabio Vieira, we trust Smith Rowe, we trust the likes of Patino to come back and actually play a part, then why not? But again, as I said, if there's a different profile in who's available, you go for that player instead, you know. But it just depends on who's available. As I've said, show me the players that are available, the options that are there, and then we'll see who we feel is best. I think from the options that seem to be available, Rice seems very interesting. The guy in the Spanish league who's been mentioned, he looks a bit like Smith Rowe to me. Anyways, like that kind of like attacking mid who just receives in the final third and attacks the box. Of course, you can probably go for someone like that as well. He probably might not be as expensive, but you can go for him if you can't rely on Smith Rowe's fitness. But for me, Smith Rowe is someone who long term should be playing in midfield in that kind of role where they're attacking the box, carrying the ball, receiving in the final third, and attacking the half space. But yeah, I feel like Declan Rice would definitely be an interesting signing. But let's just see the options that are available to us and if that's actually a real target. But yeah.